Hello and welcome to another installment of the Mood Room. We are going to continue our podcast from, was it last Friday?
Last Friday.
It was last Friday where we did our conspiracy discussion. Like, we're going to just call it conspiracy, even though most of it's not conspiracy anymore. It's fucking
Conspiracy fact.
Conspiracy fact. So we're joined again by my good friend Nick. Say hello, Nick.
Hello, everyone.
And when we ended the show last time, we started talking in the car, and we just kind of started going, just getting crazy, right? So initially we wanted to get into one area, and then we started thinking about it, and we wanted to kind of just back it up a little bit and start, and not hit people with the heavy stuff, because that way we don't lose you guys. So we want to lead into the crazy, what people would consider the crazy stuff, and then we'll take it from there. So we're going to go back, and so you mentioned we were at the car, the great impact of we'll call them Zionist Jews. Now here's the thing about this. We said last time when we started talking a little bit about the impact of Zionist Jews on the world, that we want to make sure people understand that we're not anti-Semite. There's no anti-Semitism going on here. We're just putting out information that we found that Zionist Jews are part of. So the thing here is that this doesn't mean that there aren't people that are really good and live their lives positive and all that kind of stuff in the Jewish faith. And we're definitely not saying that. But there is a facet of the Jewish, the Zionist Jewish way of doing things that has a global impact, and we have to talk about it. That's pretty much what we need to do here, because there is no point in covering up certain aspects of what's happening in the world just because we're worried about people's feelings getting hurt. This is much bigger than people's feelings.
I agree with you.
So we got to do what we got to do. We don't mean any to hurt anybody's feelings or anything. We're going to put the information out there. Again, one of the things we ask people to do is don't take our word for anything. Look the stuff up yourself. Form your own opinions, and we'll just go from there. So where'd you want to? I know you talked about. Well, I was kind of like jarred when you talked about the circumcision and stuff, and so it's like, what it was like.
I forget what we had left.
Well, it was like they cut and then they drink, drinking the blood from this stuff, and so I was like, whoa, what the? I mean, I heard of that, but it just. To hear it from somebody else was kind of like, okay, I'm not the only person that's paying attention to some of this stuff.
A lot of this stuff was brought out a long time ago. Now, thanks to the internet, probably the only way that you can research it anymore, because I doubt you're going to see it in any of our media, whether it's in print or on a show here or something they broadcast in a magazine. That's because 96% of the U.S. media is owned by Jews, mostly Zionist Jews. And what they show you is what they want to show you. A lot of the stuff, because of the internet, has been uncovered in the last few years and is getting more views, is getting more out there because it's actual real history that's happened from World War I to World War II, even before that, and even way before that.
Well, the interesting thing about that, in terms of history, is like the people that are in power create the history. So the stuff that you're taught in school and the stuff that you taught that people learn is not necessarily the true history.
Absolutely.
And now that, like you said, we have the internet, we now have access to information that wasn't out there. All we had before was just what we were taught.
Right. And to actually research it in the past, which people have done, and people have gone and researched it at the highest levels, you have to go to national archives, to individual countries' archives, and research it. And this is where that information initially came from. I mean, it's real history. It was documented because it really happened. Voltaire has a famous quote where he says, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize."
Interesting. Who's Voltaire? Is that his name?
Wasn't he was one of the Renaissance, I think,
okay.
One of the, the New Wave, the philosophers, Renaissance guys.
Okay.
I believe, don't quote me on that, but that was by Voltaire, and that's interesting. It's just that it goes back a long time, and you can research it, and it's just coming out, and it's on the internet, and it's where I came across a lot of this stuff that talked about stuff that happened from World War I to World War II. And what we had left off talking about with John was I was describing to him the barbaric ritual that rabbis undergo when they circumcise the child, when the moil comes in, and
So,
they
but hold on. So, the initial idea of circumcision is your a priest is coming in there, and they're supposed to be. What is the purpose? What was the initial thought of circumcision? What do people think in their minds
I
what's
mean,
happening with circumcision? Because
I'm
I know.
circumcised, and in this day and age,
Yeah, pretty much
I mean,
everybody
we
is.
all are, and it's done here as a
health-
cleanliness
yeah, a
thing,
health thing,
as
right.
a health thing, a health issue. I don't know the symbolism and everything behind it, but what it does boil down to is initially it's pretty much almost, I mean, what else would you call it but a blood ritual? When you have one or multiple rabbis leaning in, cutting the foreskin, and then they take turns. There's an actual word for it. I think it's zietzing or teetzing. They lean in and they suckle the blood from the freshly cut foreskin while saying or praying or doing whatever, while the infant is just sitting there screaming in pain. I mean, that's just crazy when I heard that.
What is the idea behind? So what is the purpose? So what are they trying to achieve by doing that? What's the idea there? This ritual. What's the? I don't know if you know, but what? So is that supposed to do what for the rabbi or the child or the family? What is it supposed to do?
Well, they want to convince you that, I guess it's only a, the art of the bris, which is what they call it, the ceremony where they do it. That's a Jewish thing, and in our day and age, like we said, it's for a health and a cleanliness thing. But the history behind it, I really don't know. I'd have to look into it. But
Okay.
it is almost a real barbaric blood ritual, similar to the way they obtain kosher beef. When I was asking you, do you know what it means to be kosher?
Right,
have
and
kosher
I
meat?
thought that it was just a rabbi
Literally
blessing.
standing there blessing the meat
Right, that's what I
already
thought.
been slaughtered or whatever. That's what I thought too. You know what I mean? You have your kosher pastrami, kosher corned beef. It all tastes great, and you see kosher everywhere. The K symbol on all the food products, the U symbol. That means it's kosher, parve. It means that they've done whatever to it, and a rabbi has, for lack of a better terms, on that jar of kosher peanut butter, blessed it. But really what that does is, once it's kosher, those foods costs more to make, it costs more for consumers to buy now, and only less than 2%, about 2% of Americans are Jews. 98% are not Jewish. So you're forced to buy a product and pay more for the way it's produced, and have it be kosher, although you're not of that particular faith. I mean, they feel that they rule over you, and there's quotes where they call people who are not of the Jewish faith goy or goyim, which means cattle. They consider you their cattle to do with as they please.
Now
You're lower than them.
Now again, we're talking about extremist Jews, right? Like Zionist extremists. These are like the upper echelon. These are ride or die, for like a better way to describe it, Jews, right? That's what you're saying?
Right, but it encompasses a large portion of politicians in Washington I would consider Zionist Jews. Do they take part in any bloodletting rituals or anything like that? I don't know. But do some rabbis who are on that side and who partake in all? Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that, because when I see a lot of the laws and things being passed, it's like they're so detrimental to the populace. It's like, what the hell is going on? Like, you're talking about like some of your healthcare stuff and some of these like ridiculous EPA laws and all these kind of stuff. And it's like, why would you bother this? Why would you bother that? This is beneficial to people. It's just hurtful and evil and like just. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like it looks like there's a goal there of hurting and killing people.
It's absolutely.
Like, a lot of it's like, how dare they even have the balls to present this to anybody?
Absolutely, and not only do they present it to you and throw it in your face, it's our tax dollar that pays for all this stuff.
Ain't that a bitch?
In the end, it's our tax dollar that funds liars. That funds liars like NASA, the Freemasons. I mean, it's just a fact of life. Jews run the world. Freemasons are under the Jews. It's been like that for a long time. And I mean, I when I was just looking into the stuff and the stuff that they had to say, the people who have these radical Zionist view and how they view normal people, me, you, anybody around us who isn't of the same faith. This is what, if I can find it, this is what they had to say in 1912 a rabbi, I believe, by the name of Israel Cohen, who put out something called a racial program for the 20th century, had this to say: by propounding into the consciousness of the dark races that for centuries they have been oppressed by whites, we can mold them to the program of the Communist Party. While inflaming the Negro community against the whites, we will instill in the whites a guilt complex for the exploitation of the Negroes. We will aid the Negroes to rise in prominence in professions and in the world of sports and entertainment. With this prestige, the Negro will be able to intermarry with other whites and begin a process which will deliver America to our cause. Israel Cohen, 1912, a radical program, a racial program for the 20th century.
So here's the thing about this. So people that are gonna, obviously people are gonna be on the comments and such. They're gonna be like, "What is wrong with these guys? What are they talking about? This stuff is crazy." Look at what's happening now. I was looking at protests and things when the election and all that kind of stuff, and there was actually a white guy in one of the protests yelling at another white male, actually saying, "You're a white male." This is a white guy talking to a white guy, and you talk about the guilt and all that kind of stuff, and it's like,
this is what it's come to.
It's prevalent now. So when you look at, excuse me, when you look at the Hollywood and the sports and all that kind of stuff, is it not obvious?
And
you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that they haven't achieved a certain level of ability to do those things. It's just it is also an underlying agenda.
Absolutely. And this was said 100 years ago, and it's exactly what's being played out with the divide and conquer technique
so
in
unfortunately,
America.
we're now seeing the result of a lot of these plans now. And I don't know if the end game is going to happen in our lifetimes. Things look like it's going to end that look like it's going to be that way. I hope not, but we better really start waking up. It's really coming to a head now.
Absolutely. In the New York, the Jewish Weekly, the largest newspaper magazine outside of Israel, in a column that they wrote, "As for the Goyim, Gentile souls are of a completely different and inferior order. They are totally evil, with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. If a Jew needs a liver, can you take the liver of an innocent non-Jew passing by to save him? The Torah would probably permit that. Jewish life has infinite value. There is something infinitely more holy and unique about Jewish life than non-Jewish life," said Chabad Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg in a New York Magazine newspaper.
Wow. And you would think that would get some coverage like you wouldn't believe, and just put the spotlight on some of this craziness. But it doesn't.
People, the column is out there. It's out there to be researched. The stuff is in print. But it's not pushed on the media because, simply put, they control the media. I'm not any proponent of Hitler, but Hitler is, like we briefly brought up last time, is the most demonized man in the history of mankind. And why? And for years and years, we've been taught in school, just like everyone else, it's because of what he did to the Jews, and the oppression, and the Holocaust, and World War II, and the Nazi Party, etc., etc. But when you look up some facts about Hitler, some facts that it's history, that facts that happened in Germany, what he did for the country, it goes against the grain of everything they've taught you. I went through and jotted down a couple of different things, and it was almost like a timeline. Let's see if I can find it.
Well, it's interesting because like you said, when history, when it's controlled, it can be used as a tool to make people feel a certain way about certain groups. So it's like if I win a war and I can now write the history, I'm going to write a history that's beneficial to me.
Absolutely.
Right. So
Winston Churchill said that winners write the history books.
And unfortunately, I'm going to have to say that's smart to do. Now, do we want truth instead? Yes, but if I'm the victor, I might do what I want to do that's going to benefit me. I just fought a war and my people have died. I might, do what's best for, but ultimately it's bad for the world, though, this stuff that's going on.
Absolutely. And, it has to be exposed because it's true history, and it goes against it. And when you give someone the sympathy card in society because of perceived actions against them that you think were bad or atrocities that their people suffered, now that group of people not only has tremendous leeway in society, but they also have tremendous sway in society. And I mean, it's blatantly obvious in politics and in the newspapers and in the media. It's blatant. I mean, they tell it to your face that they control Hollywood. It's no longer any type of conspiracy theory or any
stuff
conspiracy
is out there now.
fact. The infiltration of America happened. It happened a long time ago. You know, I mean, to go back, World War I in 1914 started with Great Britain on one side, along with France and Russia, against Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey on the other side. In 2 years, German subs cut off France and England. They cut off their supply lines. They cut off the food. They had all but won the war. They wanted the war called off. Germany went to Great Britain and they said, we want to call off the war. We want nothing. We just want it to go back to how it was before the war. Okay? Before anything was agreed upon, Zionists go to the British War Cabinet and tell them not to sign treaty under any circumstances. Zionist Jews promise to Great Britain that they can deliver the United States as an ally to aid them, and they will win the war. In order to do that, they tell them they want something done for the Zionists. They want Great Britain to give them Palestine, which was, I believe, Ottoman Turks had it before then. And Great Britain, after World War I, when they chopped everything up, Great Britain took it. They wanted them to promise Palestine to the Zionists in 1916.
Oh, hold on. So, what is the strategic advantage for the Zionists to have Palestine? What's the deal there? Is that a religious thing, or is that like a?
The Zionists, they tell you a Zionist is ultimately a person who wants a home for the Jews, that all Jews belong in Israel. But it's really, it like you were mentioning, almost an extremism. It goes to the extremes to achieve that, and your mentality has to align with that. Same with your religious mentality. Now, there's plenty of people who are Jews. I have Jewish friends. There's plenty of people who practice Judaism, and they can assimilate, and they live in other countries. They did so in Europe and in Germany after World War I. Okay, they lived there. The Jews thrived. Okay, but when the Germans learned that they had sold them out, okay, after World War I, that they had sold them out, and these are the people Germany gave refuge to. The Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, those Bolshevik Jews, what nobody points out, that was the bloodiest regime in history. In 80 years, they say between 80 to 105 million people died under Bolshevik Jews. 100 million people. Let that sink in for a moment.
I don't hear anything about that, though. And so when you compare that to this massacre of Jews, if that number is real, that kind of... I mean, I know we're talking about death, but it completely... It does not even...
It dwarfs it.
And why isn't that...
And that's what communism is. And that is what was the result of all that. So when they fled into Germany, they gave them refuge. But upon being sold out for Palestine after World War I, okay, during World War I, the newspapers and media here in America were pro-German, because not all of them, were run by Jews, and there was a lot of Germans here, and there was a lot of Jews here, and after they went, okay, and got into the war, the newspapers changed, and everything, the propaganda, everything was anti-German here during World War I when they got into the war. They would print that German soldiers were cutting off babies' hands, stuff like that. But literally all they were doing were taking part in the war and literally protecting their own country, their own interests. I mean, we were so, they say, anti-German that Woolworths threw away, I think, how many millions of dollars of made in Germany pottery in
shit.
China into the rivers, Woolworth and Company, because people would not have it on the shelves. They boycotted your stores. You know, the Jew media declared outright war on them. They were told to boycott all German businesses, their stores, similar to what we did.
So wait, so this now sets up Hitler then, because it's like now you're seeing all of this.
You're seeing all of this happen, and as time goes on, okay, like I said, they sold them out for Pakistan. Jews in Germany were later shunned. None of them were ever killed or hurt in Germany, okay? Jews, then, before Hitler even came into power, or before he really did anything, I think there was 120-something Jewish leaders from all over the world, the most powerful Jews, gathered someplace in Amsterdam, and they literally declared a holy war worldwide, okay, and a boycott of German goods against the German people, okay? The German people relied on exporting their stuff.
So this sets up the German economy just collapsing and creating the unrest that led
Absolutely. What Germans got 2/3 of their food by import. They would import it, canned goods, fruits, vegetables, food from other countries. In order to do that, they had to export. At the time, they were leading in a lot of things. They were great engineers. They produced great products. They were leading in health and science industry. Okay, they were leading. They cut off and they boycotted all that. In 1932, German unemployment is at 7 million after that happens. 30% of the people are unemployed. Basically,
shit.
1 in 3. Okay? People are poor, hungry, in debt to foreign powers. The German central bank is privately owned by the Rothschilds. 1932. 1933, Hitler comes into power and sets out to restore Germany instantly and free the German workers from debt. Hitler immediately, in 1933, kicks out the Rothschild bankers and takes Germany off of their gold standard. He issues new debt-free currency to the country and to the German people. The economy begins to instantly recover. Hundreds of thousands of people are given public works jobs. The economy instantly recovered. They started building mighty, mighty infrastructure, new stadiums, public works, transportation. Engineering becomes top-notch in the world. Germans begin to lead in health, science. Germans thank him, I think it was 1930-some, with a 99% approval rating. Hundreds of thousands new homes built in Germany. Hundreds of thousands of Germans became wealthy because they didn't have to pay interest to a private-run central bank, okay? Workers had the best working standards in Germany and all of Europe. They were taken care of more than anyone else. Paid leave, insurance, holidays off, everything. Best working conditions, safest working conditions, everything. At the same time, the rest of Europe suffers, enslaved by the debt money system and huge unemployment. In 1938, 99.73% is the actual number of Austrians vote to join Germany with Hitler. Okay, 1938, Hitler kicks the Rothschilds.
Hold on, let me slow you down a little bit. So now, what ends up happening here is you have a situation where now it's looking like people are supporting Hitler, right? So when you look at the history of Germany and the war and the atrocities, they don't talk about anything positive that came out of Hitler and all these kind of nothing at all. So this reinforces the idea that they want to instill how they want you to believe things played out in history.
Absolutely.
So it's like all these positive things that came out of Hitler. People are gonna look at you like, what are you, a Hitler sympathizer? What's wrong with you? It's like, no. We're just looking at how these shit played out. Nobody fucking sympathizes with the crazy shit that came out of all of this.
No, that's
no one wants death and suffering.
No, that's the one thing. I mean, and people who research this will tell you. I mean, you go online and you'll see there's Zionists who have converted to Christianity and have come out and made videos and told you about the blood rituals, the stuff that literally goes on, what kosher meat really means, stuff like that. It's not just me. I don't have a hatred for any group. I'm not some pro-German neo-Nazi sympathizer.
Right. I had to interject there because I already see people in the comments and just going nuts talking about, oh, these anti-Semite, blah, 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 blah. It's not that. It's information.
Absolutely.
So, it doesn't, information is information is information. So what that means is you can go verify this stuff for yourself. It's not, so in other words, you just don't want to take in information because it's controversial to you?
It's the truth.
You take the stuff in.
The truth defends itself. So whether you like me saying it or the next guy saying it or what you think of me saying it, doesn't really matter. It's the truth. And what you have to see as we progress with this show and we get deeper down the rabbit hole and you see, I mean, we're giving you a broad picture. We're going to give you the whys and why stuff goes that deep. But it starts here. You have to look at the people who really control you, and the history is behind that. History is history. This is the history you're not taught in school. And why are you not taught in school that? Because the Jew media publishes the books. They control Hollywood. They put out the movies like Schindler's List for you to see. They build a picture. It's what they do. They control that. 96% of it is owned by them. So they paint the picture you want to see. They paint me, you know what I mean? They paint you as a Nazi or whatever, because that's what it is. They can't take the truth coming out.
The more you keep people with a sheep mentality, the easier they are to control. So when you are someone that has information, you can start forming ideas and decisions based on truth and not be led by these falsehoods.
Absolutely.
So and they don't, these people, we'll refer to them as the powers that be, don't want that. We want sheep, and we want people that are just going to focus on their material goods. So the thing about the United States too is we view ourselves as almost holier than thou based on our material goods and things that we take for granted. Running water, all our cars and our phones and all our materialistic stuff. So then that allows them to continue to maintain this control because we're too infatuated with things and money and all this kind of stuff. So unfortunately, I think that we've now become a complete and utter tool to be used to,
in a consumer society.
Yeah, the United States is a tool now that's just blatantly, in my opinion, slowly taking over the world. And when you really pay attention, you'll see evidence of that.
Absolutely.
When you pull yourself away from the television and stop playing video games and you see what's really going on, it's going to give you pause. And now it's so far gone now that people are so afraid of the potential of what this means for them that they don't even want to see it. So they're more willing to distance themselves from it and call people like you or I, whatever, conspiracy nuts and all that kind of stuff, because they don't want to face the truth of what's really happening and the level of control that's been established throughout the years.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%.
And it sucks because now you're in a situation where they're blatantly making decisions that are fucking us over, and nothing's happened. People aren't in the outrage. I was talking about this women's movement against Trump, right? Do you remember that march or whatever?
Right.
And I was, it was nice in terms of seeing people paying attention at least for something and coming out of their shells, Okay. But it needs to not end there. People need to really start to come out and be outraged about all these other things, not just that. You know what I mean? I'm totally fine with people not liking Trump. Trump is, I get it, but there's so much more going on than Trump that needs to start a fire in your soul about what's best for the future of your children.
Absolutely. For the world around us, for the future. I mean, for the planet, it's deeper than one person or people.
Right.
And what it really comes down to is a group of people who think they are better than the rest of us, even though we're all sharing the planet, we're all sharing the planet's resources, you know what I mean? We're all children of something, somewhat, somewhere, okay? So one group should not feel vastly superior, but yet they do, and through centuries of manipulation and of the media and events that have gone down and perceived history, and they've established total control of what they want to do, and we're simply their pawns, and we're being played off against each other. I mean, They call you goy or goyim cattle to do with as they please. I mean, you can look this up. I mean, what we were talking about with the kosher meat, the way that really happens. I mean, it's so barbaric that if you showed that and told that to people, why hasn't PETA jumped on this with the rabbis, and why aren't they showing these
tell us
videos?
about it. You told me about it. Tell us
the
about
clock.
the process for the kosher cow, let's say.
I mean, we live on meat, and it's all we eat. And really, I mean, you should have more or less, I guess, a relation to that meat, where it comes from. And a lot of people hunt. I have no problem with that. But the way I saw it, this whole thing go down with the kosher slaughter, and what we thought we were saying before with the meat just being blessed. I mean, normal slaughterhouses supposedly, humanely dispatch the cattle before they, slaughter them down and break them down and process the animal. They humanely, I guess they either, sedate them with a shot before they put it out, or put it out very humanely. But in fact, you would think the rabbi doing the kosher preparing of the meat would be somewhat the same, but it's not. Instead of being sedated, the animal is perfectly 100% at all there. They take it, they put it in that block, that metal block, which encases the body with just the head sticking out. The block then turns with a hydraulic thing upside down. The rabbi leans in as the animal is struggling with a giant butcher's knife. They slit the throat ear to ear. The blood gushes out at first, then trickles out. And as the animal is screaming, the blood pouring out of it, he whispers the kosher Jew prayer in its ear, and that's what kosher meat is. I mean, if it was anyone but a rabbi doing that, I guarantee you that PETA video would be everywhere, and you would see it everywhere. But there's just information out there that's suppressed, and you're not going to get to the deeper layers of information unless you really accept that we're really being run by one group of people. You may think you have a president, a vice president, no matter what country you're in, it doesn't really matter. They're all puppets, okay? The elite Zionists and the Freemasons run the world. It's just a fact. Banking, media, and everything that has to do with all of that and all aspects surrounding that is pretty much what they control. And they have for the longest time. Hitler was the only guy, and it's why they villainize him in history, to free banks of Rothschild control. There hasn't been one country other than Hitler freeing them, and in 1938 he kicked them out of Austria as well, and their economy instantly recovered. Okay? When that happened, they went and got the U.S. into World War II.
And like we talked about before, these other countries like Libya and
absolutely, same case scenario.
Coming off the dollar, it's like that's a big no-no, and they're using that dollar to infiltrate these countries and control things.
And they wanted to do away with the dollar, these guys. And what you'll hear from people who lived in Libya at the time and these other countries, that these leaders, they treated their people well. That's a fact. They treated their people well. Look at some of these countries, like Lebanon, Iran, and surrounding countries. Look at videos of what it looked like all through the 70s, early 80s.
Another thing I've seen too is like when they depict countries in Africa, and it's always like the starving areas and the suffering. They're living in dirt and they're still like tribal and all that kind of stuff. But there's cities that are amazing in these countries. I mean, far more advanced. I was talking to my friends about this. And it's like the stuff that we see, we don't see any of that.
Right.
And so what is the reason there for that? Why are they hiding this from us? Because they want to use it to control the way we think about things.
Absolutely. They want to put that image.
Africa, from what I understand, has one of the richest resources of just about everything, minerals, metals, all that stuff. Africa's very rich in it. And because we want to control that area, we don't portray the type of lifestyles that some of the cities have. We don't, because we want to go in there and rip the stuff out of there and not compensate them properly.
Absolutely, and that's why they portray it as it's nothing there. Nothing you need to know. Donate your $10 a month to the Starving Kid
That's right.
Fund and be done with it. You know what I mean? But it's a deeper issue. It's what you're being shown. It's you have to use your eyes and your God-given senses. You have to. In this day and age, we've become. I mean, you rely on everyone telling you what to do,
Right.
what the answers are. I mean, people cannot just simply think for themselves. I mean, research the fact. It's a fact. I mean, Hitler outlawed Freemasonry, they say, in Austria, Czechoslovakia, Holland, Belgium, Poland. He didn't try to hide any of that. When he took down the Freemason, he knew that stuff, and those people behind it were evil. They were Satanists, those people, the Freemasons. It goes way beyond that and way before that. Okay, so when he did away with Freemasonry in his country and those countries, he didn't just burn down the lodges like they have you think and burn all the books and do everything. He opened them to the people so he can expose the people and open their eyes and say, these are the evils that are going on under your nose. These temples were in your city. He put them out as almost free museums.
Now imagine here in the United States if something like that were to happen when it comes to where Trump talked about draining the swamp, which we all know better now that he's not really doing that. But whatever. So imagine you had a situation where someone actually came in and did that, and and held that Federal Reserve Bank accountable, and regulated and policed that bank, and got rid of it if it didn't work for the people. How dare anybody question any of this when that banking system is in place and not a federal agency? Like, what else do you need? That is a known fact thing. The Federal Reserve Bank, they put that title on it to make you think it's federal. It is not. It's private.
You're right.
Now, you got to think about the far-reaching ramifications of that.
Absolutely.
It touches everything.
Everything, and it is who owns you, essentially. I mean, Hitler is villainized because he came so close to literally smashing the New World Order. But again, the U.S. got involved in the war. We get perceived history.
The puppet country. Let's not forget.
Of
The
course.
United States is the puppet country.
Of course, we could probably do.
I don't want to be anywhere else, and I love the United States, but we got to be realistic here.
We could probably do a whole show on post-war and the crazy stuff that went on when they went into Palestine and they gave them Israel, and how the people who were a third of the population get more than half the land, and 2/3 of the people get less than half the land. And actually, this last week in the news, there was a guy who privately put out of his pocket $25,000. It was somewhere in the tri-state area. I'm not sure if it was New York, Jersey, or Pennsylvania, but I know I saw it on local 247 News, one of those. And he had put up, it was either at bus terminals or subway terminals, he had put up ads, and like those paste ads that you could take out yourself. And he took one out, and I forget what it was, but it was the Jewish occupation of Palestine. And he showed 4 pictures of gradually how it started, and in 2 colors, Israel in white, and the other color was either blue or green. And through the 2 colors and 4 pictures, he showed how in the last years, how it's growing and growing and growing. And people don't know it's literal. Land that was given to them, and now land was taken over, other land was bought. A lot of people claim ethnic genocide goes on there still to this day. I'm not some pro-Palestinian person. I'm not Muslim. I don't partake in any particular organized religion. I'm baptized Greek Orthodox, okay, which is I'm a Christian, and I believe in some type of higher power, but I don't align myself with anything. But the facts are facts, and when you see what has gone on there, and immediately this guy caught flack over this,
I'm sure
and
he
they right away the Jewish leagues, Jewish lawyers, everything got right on him. Those had to come right down. And all he was simply doing was pointing out
Showing out what's
literally
happening.
exchange of land. I mean, I've seen videos where they can really literally roll. They'll go and they'll have some rabbis digging something in the sand on Palestinian apart land, okay, and they'll find something, they can declare it, or they call it a holy dig site. Then they call in the army, they roll the tanks in, put up the barriers. Now that's their land.
Wow. Just like
that. Anybody opposes? I mean, there's been quotes by past Israeli prime ministers, and if the people knew this and knew the amount of support the U.S. gives some of these people like Menachem Begin, Netanyahu, Ariel Sharon, all these people who were prime ministers pretty much before that, and their fathers before them, they were either Mossad or Israeli military. I'd say probably 4 out of 5 of these guys. And there's quotes. I mean, I haven't gone through, and I didn't have time to print out and jot all of them down and stuff. I mean, but there's quotes where they're literally talking about bashing Palestinians' children's faces into the rocks and watching their brains splatter, and how they don't mean shit, and the tanks just trample over them and take over that land.
And we're giving them money. We're the big humanitarian country, right? We're the big puppet.
We're a puppet for that. We are their number one supporter.
Here it is, right? So this is my take on some of this stuff, right? So you have the United States, and we have our own problems. Everybody's worried about health care and starving people and veterans. How veterans are getting taken care of and all this kind of stuff. So how are we pumping? So they're going to say, "Oh, you got to do that because you have to stop these other countries from taking over." But all right, so we're pumping all of our tax money into these other countries. And worrying about their problems and their concerns when we have our own problems.
And essentially, whose bidding are you doing?
Right, exactly. That doesn't mean I'm saying... So, on the surface there, it implies that, like, these countries that we're giving all this money to, they have some big role in how the things are going to play forward in the future. So here's the thing, right? So, I've heard people argue and say that if we don't give them this crazy amount of money, I know... that this crazy amount of money and things are going to fall apart and unravel. And I'm like, the United States, so we've been programmed to believe that Israel is on the right side of things,
right?
And they've done no wrong. Right. They can do no wrong.
Right.
So what is the bigger picture here? What's really going on? So at the point that information is put out there, do we stop supporting this fucking shit, or do we keep being puppets?
The information will never be put out there. What people have to do is literally go to research.
So we talked about it last time. Could you break down a little bit the role of the Muslim faith in all of this with Israel and the Palestine and all this kind of stuff? You talked a little bit about it. You don't got to get in too depth, but because people have this idea of they've been programmed to hate Muslims and all this kind of stuff with the ISIS and all this kind of stuff.
Before that, and for a long time in Palestine, okay, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, the most were Muslims, second most were Christians, third most were Jews. In all of Palestine, they lived and worshipped separate and fine, and there was no issue. Like it has been for thousands and thousands of years before that. There was never an issue on this planet with all sects and religions operating as individual and sharing right or wrong. I mean, the planet and the universe. But you see the conflicts in the Middle East, and you see and research why Israel was created. And then if you even want to get deeper, they say the Zionist plan is to actually turn it into Greater Israel, which expands it by the shape of a triangle's worth of expansion to the top half, which I think encompasses Syria and Iran. The next two on the hit list.
Oh, that's right. I was about to say, isn't that interesting?
They want that land. In other words, they want nice triangular shape, nice chunk of this, nice chunk of that to add it on. Okay? I mean, there's people, what was for the life of me, you're not going to get his name because I didn't write it down, and it was some long Muslim sounding name, but his real name was Simon something, and you can research it. Try typing in leader of ISIS was Jewish. He was an actual, when they found him and unasked him or whatever, one of these ISIS leaders was an actual Israeli citizen or Israeli Mossad. They've found that a lot of them are. I mean, I'm not trying to discriminate, you know what I mean? But if you're not from that part of the country to tell apart who's who, if a normal American couldn't go to Palestine and tell apart an Arab from a Jew.
Right.
It's very, very close.
I mean, it's very easy to be infiltrated.
Absolutely. It's very, very easy. I mean, look at what happened with, 9/11 and the World Trade Center. Most people don't know that between the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, 4,000 Jews who worked in the World Trade Center didn't show up for work that day. 4,000.
Now, here's the thing about that, right? So, I don't want to get too much into 9/11, but it just reinforces this idea that the citizens of the United States don't want to face any type of truths. So, you have information like that, right? So now, I'm quite sure that information could be verified. I don't know, but I'm going to go with the idea there that could be verified, right? So, that information comes out, right? People are still going to deny that 9/11 was an inside job. They're still going to deny it because they don't want to face any truth. How could this couldn't possibly be, because that's going to burst bubbles. You know what I mean? So it's like when you look at the laws that were passed after 9/11, the Safety Act, what I think was one of the things where they were able to now surveil everybody under the guise of protecting them. And it's like, don't you understand the far-reaching ramifications of that sort of thing? Now they can spy on you.
Right.
Now they can listen to what we're doing through our phones and all that under the guise of national security.
That's the reason it was done. That's the reason
it was done. So, and then go back to war again.
They want you to think that it's a giant threat, that, look, you got to give up some of your liberties to have us make you safe. You don't got to do shit. I can defend my own self. You know what I mean?
Now, while I have it on my mind, I want people to understand that if anybody wants to come on the show and talk with us, I'm more than willing to have anybody on, Skype, whatever.
Sure.
We could talk about anything. You know what I mean? I'm opposing views. Please come on and do it. That's perfectly fine. I'm not some person that won't listen to other adversity. I invite it
and listen. Absolutely, and I invite it all the time, especially on other topics. I'm not an expert on this.
Neither
stuff.
am I. I'm nowhere near an expert. It's just, to me, at this point, with the information that's out there on the internet, it's kind of like you'd be foolish not to look at some stuff.
Absolutely, and then people. What gets me is people almost. Then some people raise an eyebrow and say, oh, where'd you see that, on YouTube or whatever? It's like, well, where did you go? The Encyclopedia Britannica in the library?
That's right.
I mean, everybody goes to the internet. That's where you do it.
Here's the thing. The bottom line is, when it comes to information, you got to take in as much as you can from all sources, right? Because you don't know what's actually real because you weren't there witnessing it. Right. You got to take it all in, and you got to weed through it. And the only place you will get some information that may not have been part of some plot is on YouTube or the internet.
Absolutely.
That's the only place you're going to get
free resource you have for real information, because it's people who don't have, the people giving this information don't have ulterior motives. I mean, some of the YouTube guys get paid for commercials or whatever, but that's not what I mean. They don't have any ulterior motives. They're interested in the stuff just like me, you, and the next guy, and they're passing along what real history is, what their research is. But people are never going to wake up and accept that it gets way deeper than this.
I mean, it's scary. I get. You know, I understand that. When you come to the realization that, you know, nothing you know is what you think it is, it's kind of like, am I living in the Twilight Zone? What the hell is happening?
You're right.
So I get it, you know, but, you know, I just feel obligated to just try to open up some eyes and make people aware of some stuff. Will I eventually potentially pay for it? Maybe, but I'm gonna try. You know what I mean? It reminds me of when I started, and this is one of the areas where I ended up getting into all of this stuff, was I started getting into eating healthier and all that kind of stuff, believe it or not.
Right,
and
so you have to use it as a resource.
That's what led me into all this, what would be considered conspiracy stuff, because when I looked into food, the food stuff led me into so many other areas.
Sure.
So the point here is that,
because they're killing us through that too.
That's right. So one of my friends, you know, he's like, I told him to watch this show on Netflix. It was Food Matters, right? And it was just some information about the food industry and all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't even look at it, because he's like, oh, you don't know if that's true or not. I'm like, so you look at it and decide.
Right.
And the stuff was very black and white, factual type of stuff, but he wouldn't even look at it.
Right.
I was so disheartened. I'm like, come on. You know, so you mean to tell me, if there's a chance you can find a cure for cancer, let's say, in that show, you won't even look at it?
Right.
Because you've been programmed to think that all you can do is cut it out and use chemotherapy?
Exactly. You immediately get the blockers, the blocker response. Their mind is in
Just
most
look at
cases
it.
not even made up for themselves. Their mind is already programmed made up.
Just look at the stuff. That's all. Just look at it. Do some outside thinking.
And the stuff I say and the stuff I've researched is not like going on there looking at one video and form. No, I mean I do actual
look at
research.
A bunch of shit.
Research the dates, research stuff that really happened, looking up stuff in actual articles and actual history stuff that happened.
Yeah, so, I implore people to just open their eyes and ears and be willing to just look outside the box. Because if you stay inside the box, all the stuff going on outside the box, it's going to affect you and you won't be prepared for it.
It's ultimately their grand plan. Distraction and, to be a mindless slave that they own you. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think that people are just happy being in the Matrix and being
You know what?
now
Hold on a second. I'm going to defend these people for a second, right? So there are people that can't handle the harsh truths of what's happening, right? So these people will be completely overwhelmed by this information. They're just not strong enough to handle it. So if they want to live their lives inside of the bubble and not be, they don't even want to hear about the stuff. I'm not mad at them. I'm really not, because
how can you be?
Ultimately, what it's going to take in order to stop what's happening or what is to come, it's going to take the effort on the level of a willingness to give your life for it.
Mark Twain.
For every single person that gets shot down or killed trying to get information out there, each of us has to have a willingness to put our lives on the line and take their place. They can't kill us all.
You're right. If enough people want answers and confront something, and truth defends itself. You know what I mean? Truth defends itself. You put it out there, it doesn't matter. It'll hold up. It'll go through the test of time, and it's why it's still here. Real history is truth.
Right, and luckily for us, we have the internet now. We can have worldwide access to information.
Right,
we're so lucky to have that. And then I see young people, the stuff that they're interested in, they don't take advantage of this at all.
Oh, forget it.
I'm like, I don't want to be one of those guys that just craps on young people. But we're now seeing the result of years of programming.
You're right.
That's got them focused on things that are not as important as things that are going on in the world. They're so focused on Facebook and Kim Kardashian's butt and the music that's really brainwashing them into thinking certain ways, and they don't want to believe it. But when I saw the change in rap music from what we knew as traditional rap music, and then this I don't even know what it is now. It's like mumble rap where they're dressing like females and all this kind of stuff, and it's like,
I agree with you. We can get into that whole thing.
I know
they say 95% of rappers are gay. You know what I mean? You can get into the whole thing with Hollywood. And how they become famous and the Illuminati. I mean, there's hours and hours you can do on just that subject.
Well, we'll save that for now.
I mean, the Hollywood horror stories.
They're horrible.
I mean, but I agree. It's almost as if just systematically the masculinity has been taken away from men.
Isn't that interesting?
Is what I noticed as a man.
And you know what I'm seeing with young males? They all have self-esteem stuff now. Like, they don't think they're attractive, and they're not.
Which
they
was
don't,
never an issue.
No,
with us.
men don't give a shit about that on that level. I mean, obviously you care about how you look, but on the level of being depressed about it,
not when
what the fuck? I didn't give a fucking shit about that.
Whatever it was. You eventually either grew up or grew out of it. You know what I mean? Whatever it was.
But now
you couldn't change that.
Right.
But now they want you to think, well, you know what? There's something you can do about it. You don't have to think that way. You don't have to be that way.
You don't have to feel that way.
Just everything, your normal human psyche is just twisted and bombarded with these young kids at every angle.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so now you see all this stuff with all these genders and all this kind of stuff, and it just...
And the way they're throwing that at them, younger and younger.
Oh, yeah. And like... I wasn't really fully aware of it until I started looking into it, but like they start with the cartoons now, and it's just they're pushing so much sex on these kids. It's crazy when you pay attention.
And the message
and the Satanism too is in there, which is absolutely sad. It's scary, actually.
Absolutely.
It's blatant to me now. It's just blatant.
When you watch it, the homo stuff is there. The sex stuff in general is there. The Satanism is there. Everything. I even saw, we were watching one cartoon on Nick Jr., and it may have even been the Titans or one of the superheroes. And
there's a lot of
on
sex
American
in there now.
TV, The thing that they were talking to the kids about were the Jewish holidays, believe it or not. Showing on screen what the Star of David was. Less than 2% American population, folks. Less than 2%. Yet, that's who controls the media, you know? And this is the stuff that you see on there.
So the point there is that this has been done over the years, decades now, and now we're seeing the result of it. You're seeing everybody's depressed and has to have medication, and everybody can't function like a normal human being would be able to function, and they're wondering what's happening on. We don't want to get into all the medical stuff with autism and all this other stuff. I don't,
which didn't even fucking exist. I mean, when we were kids, you never even heard of the stuff.
Right.
It was like a 1 in a million.
So what is happening? I don't want to sit here and say it's vaccinations because I don't know that. But it's like, so then what is going on then? And it's like we talked about it before with the they bombard you with all this shit at one time, and it's like
it's everything. It's everything from birth. Just about.
So did you
from birth.
finish on what you wanted to talk about with the Hitler stuff? I think you had more notes about how that thing was playing out. We got sidetracked there.
I think we pretty much went through it. I mean, we were talking. Where do we leave off?
So you feel free to put in comments and contact me. I don't mind talking to people and have them on. I really don't. I just it's so much information and so much stuff going on that I really want more information, and I also want alternative views of things. So it's kind of depressing.
Just no trolls, please. I mean, I get enough trolls as it is.
Oh, you're gonna be trolls.
Flat Earth stuff, you know what I mean? I go
boy,
through enough trolling with that.
I'm quite sure.
We don't need the trolls. We could do a little bit less on the trolling, but
it's gonna happen.
Whatever, it is what it is. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was another thing with why the internet is such a great resource. Just the other day, I was researching something, and whatever it was led me to George Patton, and a bunch of stuff came up, so I started watching videos and reading stuff up, because I had heard vaguely, but not known too much, that, he was World War II. I mean, Patton's regarded high, you know what I mean? That's the guy, the Third Army, you know what I mean? General, the guy fought in World War I, First Tank Corps, all that. Fought in World War II under Eisenhower. He was basically against the Germans, and you had MacArthur against the Japanese in the Pacific. Patton supposedly suffered a neck injury from a real light car accident. He broke his neck, real mild. He was on his way to recovery, and I think 7 to 10 days later, he died. And he died under mysterious circumstances, they say. General George S. Patton. And a lot of stuff came out after that, and a lot of stuff right towards the end of the war and after the war about Patton and speeches that he was giving to his superiors, to his officers, and to other people that he actually thought they were fighting on the wrong side in World War II. Patton knew what Stalin and communism were. He knew that it's going to sweep through Europe like it did. It will destroy Germany and chop it up like it did. It'll go into all those other countries like it did. It's why 80 million people to 100 million died under Bolshevik Jews. Communism, socialism, there's no difference. One is meant to lead into the other. Okay? It sweeps through. Patton knew this. He thought the best solution was to have his Third Army join Hitler and the Nazis before they were weakened and smash the Russians and destroy communism once and for all with the combined might of the Third Army, all of the Allies, and the German Army. This plan obviously didn't go over too well with his superiors, okay? So in a weird way, they say he was almost shunned and looked down upon. But that was his view, and he had said it. He said, if you don't build up Germany even after the war to where she can defend herself or set up places in Europe that can be a wall, that can stop communism and can defend themselves, these countries, you're gonna fall to communism. He told them this. Patton knew. And a lot of people believed he was killed supposedly because of that, under weird circumstances from a light neck break.
So what do you see in the near future happening in terms of this Zionist? Like, what do you think is the next?
Syria.
So they're gonna. What's gonna happen with Syria exactly?
Syria and Iran are next on the thing. I don't even know what's going on with this Kim Jong-un and North Korea and this Trump thing. Last week we said the same thing. We said, God, it's been a month here. We've been on the edge of our seats.
Where are the nukes?
Where are the nukes? Waiting for nuclear war.
We don't actually want nuclear war, but it's like,
hello,
shit, get out the pot. Like, we're tired of hearing about it.
We're on the edge of nuclear war. The battleships are all lined up in the water. They're all ready.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's like fear mongering more. You know. It's, so this is like the Friday's going to be like the conspiracy talk type of situation. So I just wanted to talk real quick before we end. What are your thoughts on Alex Jones? I know we talked about like Trump in a little bit. We didn't fully get in there.
To say that I think about Alex Jones.
No, because a lot of people, whenever I bring that name up, they automatically attack, oh, that nut, that crazy guy, blah blah blah, right? And then so it gave me pause about is he a shill? What's his deal and all that kind of stuff, right?
Alex
So hold on, we're gonna get into it. But it's like, to me, there's information he's putting out that's useful information.
100%.
Regardless of what his motives are, I think the information is information that people should be taking in.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And a lot of people agree with you 100%. To be honest with you, I'm per se an Alex Jones fan.
Yeah, I definitely am.
I like Alex Jones. I like InfoWars. I watch it pre and post election, especially pre-election.
Here's the thing about it, though. I don't. So when you say that, people will automatically assume you're a conspiracy nut, right? And it's not that. It's what I said earlier. We take in as much information as we can and we weed through it and decide what we want to believe or what we don't want to believe.
Exactly.
So what is your general take on him? So go ahead.
I've been into him for a long time. I've seen all the stuff he's done way back from the Oklahoma City. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the documentaries. Some of them are long. I haven't seen maybe every single one. He's done a bunch. The Oklahoma City ones. I've seen the stuff he's done on Sandy Hook, the one where he infiltrated Bohemian Grove. I don't know if you saw that with the camera, and you saw the mock sacrificing and the burning effigies, and all that nonsense going on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw that fucking shit.
Yet everybody denies, but past presidents have been there, and Hillary Clinton. Anyway.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think, here's what makes me kind of nervous about him. He puts out such controversial information and such what I would consider stuff that they just wouldn't allow. How the fuck has he survived all this time?
How haven't they plugged him?
Right. How is this guy still there?
Right. Exactly. Because you have people like.
Because he goes in.
He goes in. You know what I mean? He has the same political beliefs, more or less, that you'd get in the same type of show you'd get more or less if you look for politics on something like Savage or Limbaugh. Same type of. You know what I mean? Rhetoric, but he focuses on the conspiracy angle. That's Alex Jones. He's the conspiracy guy. You know what I mean? But when you really, really look into it, and I've been a big fan of his for a long time, and like I was saying, pre-election, I was really into it. It was the only InfoWars was really the only real news you could watch. I mean, even during the election, you'd turn on CNN, one would say Trump is at this percentage, you'd flick the channel, off by 7,
utter bullshit.
This one's off by 18, you know what I mean? So what the fuck? You know what I mean? So you couldn't believe anything. But in the last year and a half, as I've been actually seeing more and more stuff about him.
Bill Hicks? I'm kidding.
About him, about Alex Jones, and through other people who make videos on subjects and, stuff like that, even though he's considered this conspiracy nut, and like you said, why haven't they killed him? Okay, two things with that. If he keeps constantly saying, Alex Jones, that they want to pull him off the internet, you know what I mean? That's his thing now. He was very popular, like I said, pre-election, you know what I mean? But now post-election, his big thing is him getting pulled. The globalists want to yank me off the net. Free speech is going to end. We got to fight for it. This, that. I think he's setting you up for our internet to be yanked away from us. And for him to say they did it because of conspiracy people like me, or did it on me, and that's the reason they yanked the internet away from me. Because he's trying to sell you this, and when I think about it, Alex Jones right now, post-election, is not really a threat to anyone. You know what I mean? Pre-election, he could sway votes for Trump.
That's true.
You know what I mean? He had a voice pre-election and a purpose. Now, to be honest with you, I don't watch his show nowhere near as much as I did.
Yeah, I haven't either.
It hasn't been as interesting.
I was every day watching that, listening to that stuff. I mean, religiously. I'd have it on multiple computers.
Me too. Me too.
But now I don't. That's interesting you say that.
Me too. I'll research other independent guys that I'm finding. Guys with smaller followings. And what a lot of these guys say is that he's a gatekeeper in that he allows you to go so far down the rabbit hole, will show you what a lot of people think the Jews control him as well. Okay? And that he's backed a lot of people. You read a lot of his message boards and the comments on his videos. A lot of people call him backed by Zionists. They think the Alex Jones, is really, you know what I mean, is a very pro-Israel show. And he is. His views are pretty much pro-Israel. But he, you know what I mean? He's a gatekeeper. And there's stuff that Alex Jones will not touch. Even, I mean, you're the conspiracy guy. Nothing should be too crazy for you, dude. Okay, but there's stuff that he won't touch. He doesn't touch Flat Earth. He barely touches the NASA stuff anymore. The stuff that really, the stuff that, he just thinks it's ludicrous. And if you look into a couple shows he's done recently with the guy, Eddie Bravo, who was on the Joe Rogan show, and the video, when he uploaded the first Eddie Bravo interview to Alex Jones actually took it down because most of the interview was about Flat Earth. And it was taken off air, and then the only way you could see the thing of it was on Eddie Bravo's thing. And then they actually did a follow-up podcast about it with a guy named Eric Dubé, which ran 3 hours long. And he explained Flat Earth almost in layman's terms from beginning to end. And it was fucking fascinating, just that portion. But he went on to explain what these guys like Alex Jones and David Icke, the reptilian guy with the reptilian bases on Mars, that conspiracy guy, the Royals are lizards,
Yes, I've heard of that stuff.
Guy,
I didn't heard of the
David Icke, guy, that's his name behind that. So yeah, people who believe that, they rather believe that there's lizards on a moon base on Mars, okay, or on the moon, than the possibility of possibly the Earth being flat around. You know what I mean? Or definitely not being a globe, like we're told. But see, Alex Jones does not touch that. So now that leads me to believe, why doesn't he touch that? It's because he's controlled opposition. That's as far as he wants you to get. He don't want to point you in any other direction. He wants it to end right there with the Rothschilds and the government, and he's pro-Trump and Soros.
So a lot of what I've seen also is that a lot of at this point now they want to hide in plain sight. So a lot of the information out there that he puts out there about that sort of stuff is basically like telling you what's really going on, right? It's like they do that now, where it's like it's blatantly now, and he's one of those guys that could be doing that for them.
And they mix lies with the truth,
right?
So it's very hard to
weed
tell.
Through, yeah.
You know what I mean? Bringing up the subject of the whole Flat Earth thing, people point out that there's the Flat Earth Society and the Flat Earth Society website. The Flat Earth Society is controlled opposition. They mix lies with the truth. They will give you some flat earth truth, but then they spin bullshit, and they have bullshit on their site, like they give you instances of flat earth in Hollywood movies, and it has a little cartoon of a guy falling over the edge, and it points at it as being comical while giving you maybe shreds of info that are truthful here and there. And people who are turned on to this flat earth thing and go to this bullshit website, okay, the Flat Earth Society, get instantly turned off by it because they see if people really believe this, they're loons. But it's a controlled opposition site. It's meant to turn you off right there. It's meant to sound ludicrous so you don't look any fucking further. They explain gravity as the Earth, the flat Earth, on its rock base is constantly rising in space. It's constantly moving upward. That's how the Flat Earth Society explains it, when really I can do a whole show and tell you how it's nothing more than the laws of buoyancy and mass.
We've been meaning to from the beginning, but we'll get with so what direction do you want to go next with this show? Did you want to save that for like towards the end, or did you want to start pulling some other information and start building a base and then go into that?
I like what we're doing. We're just opening eyes. You know what I mean? I try to just come up with a couple different topics every week. But when it comes to Flat Earth, I can just do a whole thing. I can probably do a whole show where we can just sit there and I'll just literally ramble off the list. You know what I mean?
You
'Cause
better
it's gonna-
get ready for the backlash, because that is a shocking thing for people to be able to. That pill is huge. Like, it's like a bowling ball sized pill to try to swallow for
and
people.
it's because of bullshit like the Flat Earth Society, where the first thing they think of, I mean, I lay people odds now. When I talk about it with friends and we want to bring it up to someone else, I lay them odds and say, I'll give you 7-1 on your money that when I mention Flat Earth to this guy over there, he mentions some smart aleck remark about going over an edge. Okay? So we did it once when we were working. Okay? The painters were over there. Me and my buddy were doing the electrical work. I said, I'll give you 10-1 fucking right now on $1 that this fucking guy, you mentioned Flat Earth to him. See what these guys fucking say. My friend Frank, he says to him, hey guys, did you know the earth is flat? The one ignoramus looks at him and he says, yeah, and after this work day, I'm going to walk off the edge.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I mean,
I don't mean to mock people. It's really...
You've been response.
But what I'm saying is, you've been taught to believe a certain thing, and it's really hard to not to move away from that what you've been taught. And I get that. So. And again, I don't know what is actually true. There's information out there that is contrary. So I'm looking at it like I think you should look at it.
Absolutely.
That's all.
I think everyone should look at it. Personally, at this point in my life, I'm 100% convinced of what my eyes tell me and what I feel.
Well,
I don't need anyone else. I'm pretty much there, and I believe me when I tell you, I started this and took it with the smallest grain of salt possible, and I looked as flat earthers as lunatics, like we are saying.
I did too.
And I set out to debunk it.
Next thing I
and
know,
I
did 8 hours straight of information.
Yes, and it gets to a point where it opens your eyes. Then it opens your eyes more, okay? And you get past the fact that now this is possible. So now you look into it more and more and more, and it's to the point where it almost becomes depressing. You know what I mean? Because it takes so much time. I mean, you're just literally sitting there 18 hours a day doing fucking research, looking at videos, you know what I mean? Barely
weeding through the bullshit.
All the stuff, and trying to form your own opinion and to see the research. And you just get to a point, though, where when you see it and you can now tell what's what and what the information is and what's real from fake and who's, I mean, it's almost, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it's almost an enlightening feeling. Like,
it is.
I walk around like I'm Neo in the Matrix, and I'm awoke, and these guys fucking have no clue.
I'd rather know than not know. That's just the bottom line. I get people that don't want to deal with the truth and all that. It's overwhelming. I'm not mad at those people. I'm really not.
No.
But I'd rather know.
Right.
That's all.
And I have no problem with those people doing what they want. Everyone's entitled to live their life their own way.
That's right.
Whatever makes
you happy at the end of the day.
Sure, absolutely.
And you live your
without
70,
hurting
80
one
years
another,
and you're not hurting anybody,
or breaking laws or whatever.
Do what you got to do.
Yeah,
I'm not. You know what I mean?
I'm 100% for it too. But when people try, those same people give you a look like you're fucking crazy only because they believe what they've been told and shown since the age of 2, and not because they've researched it or because they have solid proof, simply because they were told. You know, it goes for a lot. We're told this. I mean, how do they know all these galaxies that are trillions of light years away? How do they know what they look like when they show you the colors? They can't see them. Right? I mean, am I mistaken?
No.
Is there a telescope that can see hundreds of trillions of light years away?
Are you familiar with Jane Elliott?
No.
Oh, you look into her when you get some free time. She does a thing where she like...
The name half sounds familiar.
She's
but
an
no.
older woman that does these really interesting experiments about race and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things she gets into is the globe, and how it doesn't make any sense, and then how it's not true, how the continents and things are presented to everybody on the globe and on the map. It doesn't make any sense. So she breaks it down a little bit.
On your last show, I know George had mentioned that the flight paths and stuff like that.
Yes, he did.
There's just so much on that topic. I don't even know.
Well, okay, so he wants to do a show with you. He does.
Yes,
he wants to come on.
Yeah, I think the best way to present this. Look, when somebody bombards me with questions like, why is it that at a 90-degree angle I can see the sun shining down on this certain day because the earth is spinning, they say, at 1,000, I'm going to Google the answer just like you Googled that fucking question, okay? is when you bombard me with that. What I can answer is common sense stuff and present to you in a common sense way to look at it, and through history and facts and experiments that have been done. I mean, I'm no scientist.
Neither
I'm not a
I don't
historian.
claim to be anything like that. We're putting information for you to go look for yourself.
Right, and I'm going to, as much layman terms as you can make it, but when you really start getting into the flight paths and the fact, let me just start off by saying, if you're going from one place to another place, I mean, we're not looking at a map or whatever, the shortest distance between 2 points is always a straight line. Always.
The planes don't do that.
Okay? They go, there are routes, okay? If you try to take a plane try to charter out from any place in Australia to lower South America, which on a globe is literally a straight shot around. Literally a short straight shot, which they estimate at 7,000 miles, give or take. A straight shot, 7,000 miles. When you go to book the flight and you see the actual flight routes, okay? The flight routes, I saw a thing where a guy pulled up every possible flight route when he booked the flight from every single airline.
I think I've seen that one.
In the world. And every one said the flight would take 13 hours because it would have to go this way and that way and that way, okay? And all over. And that's because it's telling you because of how many stops it has and layovers. Now, if you try on any of those to charter or to actually buy a ticket for one of the ones that has 0 stops, a direct flight, you'll find on most of these routes, there's only 1, maybe 2 out of the thousands of flights that are offered that go there directly. Every single flight has all the points of stop, and they're all 12, 13, 14,000 miles. Now, I guarantee you, just like this guy was saying, when you try to book that flight that goes there direct, that flight is going to either be canceled on you that day, they're going to tell you you're going to experience a 12-hour layover during the flight, and they'll refund you or some bullshit. They're going to give you every which way, but go their straight line in 7 hours. Because it's not possible. It's not possible. The only flight path you are going on is one in accordance to the early 1900s Gleason's map of the world. It's the one, that's the UN's logo. The UN's logo is the actual layout of our planet. If you trace going from Australia to South America, you will pass all those countries, but it will be in a straight line.
I've seen that.
You will pass all those countries that they say those stops are at, because you are going through them, but you are going in a straight line. It's because the layout of your world is wrong. See, pilots only follow those routes, and they have tools that have them level with the ground. They're not going around any type of globe. You understand? You couldn't. When you look out the windows, the horizon is completely level. I mean, there's just so much. I could spend a whole show.
All right, we're gonna have to, because I'm getting a little excited. So we only got less than 10 minutes left. So I don't want to do that one.
Oh, the last thing I wanted to say was this week I did something funny. I went to Neil deGrasse Tyson's Facebook page.
Wait, hold on. No, you always Neil. Isn't that your favorite guy, Neil? Is I heard he was like your favorite person. Yeah. He's my favorite person, all right.
Oh, man.
You love Neil. Cut it out.
So I went to his Facebook page and I tried to post something, and whatever you post, it doesn't instantly go on there. It goes to the administrator, and they have to approve it, which they obviously didn't, because I've been checking it hasn't gone on there. So the first question, I just wanted to ask him what he thought about, what are your thoughts of Auguste Piccard, the guy who went up to 52,000 feet and saw the flat Earth and said it looked flat with upturned edges. That's history. In 1931. What'd you think of that? And then I also posted one that said...
Say the name again for people. What is this? I haven't heard about this guy. What is it again? He went up...
Auguste Piccard is his name. Auguste Piccard. He went up, the first guy to hit 52,000 feet. He went up in a pressurized thing. It looked like a metal orb, like a hot air balloon essentially, with a metallized orb. You had oxygen and everything in there, him and one other guy. They went up for, I think, under 24 hours, 18 to 23 hours they were up there. When they come down, the press and newspapers and everybody was there. Dr. Picard, what'd you see? What'd you see? His exact quotes, the Earth seemed a flat disc with upturned edges. And the upturned edges he was talking about that he saw from that height was the ring of ice that keeps our waters on that flat disc, which is which is Antarctica.
And that's one of the ones where they're like, "Oh, this is off limits. Nobody can go."
And Antarctica, they'll have you believe, is a continent below South America, at the bottom of the world, the South Pole. That's a continent something like 11,000 miles long or something like that they'll tell you. But in reality, Antarctica is the southernmost point of anywhere in the world. If you start anywhere in the world and you go south, you will hit a wall of ice eventually. That's a fact.
Wasn't there was an explorer that went out.
There's
you know what? We're about to get.
We can get into that. Antarctica's a whole nother show.
Yeah, all right. So we ran out of time basically, and so I'm gonna take my guest for coming on. We'll be back again hopefully next Friday.
Oh yeah, this was great. Hopefully we're getting some info out to some people.
Well, and so thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share, dislike, tell us to go fuck ourselves.
Please
Whatever.
Don't hang us in the comments. Give us a thumbs up. I assure you, we're not like neo-Nazis. You know, it's a white guy and a black guy talking conspiracy theory. I mean, come on.
Did you really? But yeah, so just check the show out, and maybe you'll be entertained, or maybe you'll learn something. Maybe you'll find some information for yourself. That's all we ask.
Hopefully, in the future, maybe we can even. I mean, people ask. We'll post. I mean, we can post links to some of these videos. That people can explain it better than us, or some of the videos that point you in the right direction, or with the research. It's all there for you to see. You know what I mean? It's the internet. Use it while we have it, because who knows how long it's going to be there. And I mean, really, they pull the plug on that. I mean, people are going to lose their minds.
Oh, yes, they are.
I mean, it would suck for me and for us a little bit. But these young kids, they're going to be hanging themselves in the streets.
They're doing it in a very intelligent way, though, right now, because they're pinpointing areas where they're using like this. They're pushing this word false news. They're pushing it all over the place, right? Trump, false news, right? So now they're trying to pinpoint places and areas that we would now consider false news. It's like, that's the beginning of the end.
Right.
Do people not see that? Regardless of, let's say I made up some bullshit that, is completely untrue.
Right.
You have to let me be able to do that, because the guy that is telling you the truth is going to be coupled in with the guy that's not telling you the truth.
Right. And if it's something that is untrue to the point where it hurts or a defamation against somebody, they'll take you to court for that. It's not like you'd be making something up out of with malicious intent. But really, independent media should be able to be heard just as much as anyone else.
Especially when you're paying attention and you see the agenda of these what were considered mainstream media. There, it's clearly an agenda there.
They're all owned by the same people.
Your only hope is the internet, people. So you gotta support this idea of a free internet and unpoliced to an extent. Obviously, you're going to have parental guidance and all that kind of stuff.
Right, of course.
But, again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
All right, folks. Take care.